They are the guardians of the blue line, the unbreakable wall, or the human wrecking ball, the player you build a franchise around, or the villain you build a rivalry against. From class personified to cruelty on skates, these are the most loved and most hated defensemen in NHL history. Chris Pronger could have been a universally beloved icon. He had it all: the size, the skill, the vision. He won a Norris Trophy. He won a Hart Trophy. He was a generational talent who could control a game like few others. Too bad he chose to be a villain instead. Pronger didn't just play on the edge, he lived there, setting up a lawn chair and daring the league to do something about it. His career wasn't just a highlight reel, it was a rap sheet. He was suspended 8 times in his NHL career. 2 of those came during the playoffs. In the 2007 Stanley Cup Final, he delivered a vicious elbow to the head of Ottawa's Dean McAmmond and was banned for a game. The league was forced to punish its best defenseman during its biggest showcase. That was the Pronger effect. But his masterpiece of malice came in March 2008. He didn't just trip Ryan Kesler, he stomped on his leg. A blatant, vicious act that earned him an 8-game suspension, only after public outcry forced the league's hand. He was the master of the unseen crime, the quiet infraction that left a mark. As former referee Kerry Fraser said, Pronger mastered the art of the hidden foul. A stick here, an elbow there, all perfectly placed in an official's blind spot. He was a hockey genius who applied his intellect to violence. And the hate for him was personal. After leading the Edmonton Oilers to the Stanley Cup Final in his only season there, he demanded a trade for personal reasons, instantly making himself public enemy number 1 in an entire city. He targeted stars. He played with a calculated cruelty. He was, as Ryan Kesler put it, a dirty player who was actively trying to hurt people. Chris Pronger wasn't just a defenseman. He was a force of nature who bent the rules until they broke. A Hall of Famer whose plaque should probably come with a list of his infractions. Before there was Pronger, there was Ulf. Ulf Samuelsson wasn't just a pest, he was a predator. A knee-hunting specialist who played with a singular, terrifying purpose: find the other team's best player and remove him from the game, permanently. Ask Bruins fans. In the 1991 playoffs, Samuelsson delivered a brutal knee-on-knee hit to superstar Cam Neely. That single hit derailed a Hall of Fame career. Neely was never the same, and Boston has never forgotten. It wasn't just a hit, it was an assassination. Samuelsson was so despised that his peers called him the most hated man in hockey. He was described as the lowest form of a human being to ever play the game. The hatred for him was so intense that Ty Domi once sucker punched him unconscious, claiming Ulf had insulted him. The punch earned Domi a suspension, but in arenas around the league, he was a hero for it. His stat line tells the story: over 1,000 games played, and a staggering 2,453 penalty minutes. He didn't just lead his teams in grit, he led them in grime. And the worst part? The ultimate insult. He won. Ulf Samuelsson was a key part of 2 Stanley Cup championships with Pittsburgh in 1991 and 1992. He even scored the Stanley Cup winning goal in 91. It was the perfect villain's ending. He destroyed your favorite players, tormented your team, and then lifted the trophy you dreamed of, all without a shred of remorse. He wasn't just hated, he was feared, resented, and remembered for all the wrong reasons. He was the blueprint for the modern villain. If Ulf Samuelsson wrote the book on predatory defending, Darius Kasparaitis added a new chapter. He was the next generation of menace, a human wrecking ball from Lithuania who arrived in the NHL with a total lack of respect for established NHL stars. He wasn't just there to play defense, he was there to hunt legends. Kasparaitis made a career out of targeting the biggest names in the sport: Mario Lemieux, Marc Messier. He saw a superstar and saw a bullseye. His signature moment of infamy came in 1998 against the Philadelphia Flyers. He saw Eric Lindros cutting across the ice with his head down and delivered a crushing chest-high check that echoed through the arena. The hit gave Lindros a concussion that sidelined him for over a month and was a key moment in the long, tragic story of Lindros' injury struggles. The hit was so despised in Philadelphia that the Penguins received bomb threats before their next game in the city. That's the kind of pure, unfiltered hatred Kasparaitis inspired. He was a hurricane of aggression on the ice. He yapped constantly. He used his stick like a cattle prod. He thrived on the momentum of a big hit and the roar of the crowd it created. His aggression wasn't just reserved for opponents. In a bizarre World Juniors incident, he punched his own goalie after a bad loss. That was Kasparaitis. Pure, chaotic, and completely unhinged. He was a pest you couldn't ignore and a hitter you couldn't survive. Welcome to the modern era of villainy. An era defined not just by single hits, but by a digital paper trail of suspensions, fines, and player safety videos. And no one has a longer trail than Radko Gudas. Gudas isn't just a physical defenseman, he's a liability. A player so consistently reckless that, as one reporter put it, if the Department of Player Safety had a speed dial list of regulars, Gudas would have been a prominent spot on it. His list of offenses is a masterclass in mayhem. In 2017, he earned a 10-game suspension for slashing a prone Matthew Perreault in the neck area. 10 games. In 2016, he was banned for 6 games for a blindside hit to the head of Boston's Austin Czarnik in a preseason game. In 2015, he got 3 games for an illegal check to the head of Mika Zibanejad. In 2019, he got 2 games for high-sticking Nikita Kucherov. The pattern is clear. Gudas plays with a stunning disregard for the safety of his opponents. His on-ice decision-making has been so poor that he's become a magnet for ejections. In a single 16-day span in 2016, he was kicked out of 3 different games. He's a one-man wrecking crew who plays a brand of hockey that the league is actively trying to eliminate. Every shift feels like a gamble, with the health of the other team's players as the stakes. He isn't just hated, he's a walking, skating suspension waiting to happen. Some villains are obvious. They are loud, aggressive, and proud of their work. And then there's Brooks Orpik, a player whose brand of villainy was more subtle, but just as infuriating. He was the guy who built a career on playing on the edge, whose defenders called him clean but hard, and whose victims just called him late. Orpik was a bruising physical force, but his timing was always questionable, and never was that clear than in the 2016 playoffs. In a game against his former team, the Pittsburgh Penguins, Orpik tracked defenseman Olli Määttä. Määttä moved the puck, and a full second later, Orpik launched himself into Määttä's head. The hit was predatory, it was unnecessary, and it was, in the words of the NHL Department of Player Safety, forcefully, unacceptably high, and excessively late. He was suspended for 3 playoff games. Penguins coach Mike Sullivan didn't mince words. He called it a target to his head, and the exact type of hit everyone in hockey is trying to remove from the game. That was the Orpik special. A hit delivered just late enough to cause maximum damage while maintaining a thin veneer of plausibility. He wasn't just a hitter, he was an agitator. In that same game, he was seen deliberately knocking Chris Letang's helmet off with a glove to the face after a whistle. For years, Orpik was the player his own fans loved for his grit, while every other fan base saw him for what he was, a player who walked the line, crossed it constantly, and left a trail of head injuries in his wake. Shea Weber didn't just hit you. He left a dent. He was a force of nature built out of country strength and quiet rage. A defenseman who played a brand of hockey so heavy, so physically punishing that opponents felt it on the flight home. His slap shot was a weapon, regularly clocked at over 100 miles per hour, capable of breaking bones and tearing through nets. But it was his work along the boards that earned him his reputation. Weber finished his checks with a viciousness that often crossed a line from hard hockey into outright assault. His most infamous moment came in the 2012 playoffs. In a fit of frustration, he grabbed Red Wing star Henrik Zetterberg's head and smashed it into the glass like a turnbuckle in a wrestling match. The act was so blatant, so dangerous that it drew universal condemnation. The league's response? A paltry $2,500 fine, the maximum allowable at the time, but a laughable punishment for an act so violent. That was the Weber paradox. He was a respected leader and a team captain, and an Olympic gold medalist. But he was also a player who seemed to believe the rules of engagement didn't apply to him when he got angry. He played the game with an intensity that bordered on malice, leaving opponents to wonder if his next hit was meant to stop them or to end them. Some players are hated for their dirty hits. Others are hated for their talent. Dion Phaneuf was hated for his contract. He arrived in Toronto as a savior, a big-bodied, hard-hitting defenseman who was supposed to be the new face of the franchise. The Maple Leafs gave him the captaincy and a massive 7-year, $49 million contract. And for the rest of his tenure, he played with the weight of that number strapped to his back. In the hockey mad pressure cooker of Toronto, Phaneuf became the poster boy for disappointment. Every mistake was magnified. Every defensive lapse was scrutinized. His big hits were seen as evidence of being out of position, and his offensive numbers never quite lived up to the hype or the paycheck. He wasn't a dirty player in the vein of Pronger or Samuelsson. He was a different kind of villain. He was the guy who represented everything wrong with the team, overpaid, underperforming, and ultimately not good enough to lead them anywhere meaningful. The hate wasn't just about his play, it was about what he symbolized. Fans didn't just boo him, they resented him for the hope he failed to deliver. He was a good defenseman, paid like a great one, and in Toronto, that's a sin you can't escape. We've covered the villains, the cheap shots, the suspensions, the players remembered for breaking the rules. But that's only half the story. Now it's time for the legends. The players who defined the positions not with intimidation, but with untouchable skill and class. These are hockey's most loved defensemen. Before Bobby Orr, defensemen were simple creatures. They stayed back, they cleared the puck, they protected the net. That was the job. Then, number 4 arrived and detonated the entire concept. Bobby Orr didn't just play the game, he reinvented it. He was a defenseman with the speed of a winger, the vision of a center, and the impact of a supernova. He turned the defensive zone into a launch pad and the entire sheet of ice into his personal playground. The record book tells a story that still feels impossible. He's the only defenseman in NHL history to win the Art Ross Trophy as the league's leading scorer. He did it twice. He won the Norris Trophy as the league's best defenseman for a record 8 consecutive seasons. He won 3 straight Hart Trophies as the league's most valuable player. In the 1969-70 season, he did something no player has done before or since. He won the Hart, the Art Ross, the Norris, and the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP all in the same year. It wasn't just dominance, it was a statistical monopoly. And then there was the goal. The 1970 Stanley Cup Final. Overtime, Game 4. Orr takes a pass, drives the net, and slips the puck past the goalie just as St. Louis defensiveman Noel Picard trips him. The puck goes in. The Bruins win their first cup in 29 years. And Orr is captured in the most iconic photo in hockey history, flying horizontally through the air, arms outstretched, a symbol of pure, weightless victory. That moment is immortalized in a statue, because Bobby Orr wasn't just a player. He was a moment in time, a revolution on skates, whose career was cut tragically short by injury, leaving the hockey world to wonder what other miracles he had in store. If Bobby Orr was an explosion of raw, untamable genius, Nicklas Lidstrom was the opposite. He was quiet, calculated, and flawless. He was perfection in motion. His teammates called him the perfect human, a nickname that started as a joke but stuck because it was true. He didn't beat you with brute force or blinding speed. He beat you with his brain. He was always in the right position, making the right play without ever seeming to break a sweat. He made the most difficult job in sports look impossibly easy. His consistency was legendary. In 20 NHL seasons, he was a ghost when it came to the trainer's room, missing an average of just over 2 games per season. He finished his career with an astounding plus 450 rating. He was a defensive black hole from which the puck never escaped. And the trophies followed. 7 Norris trophies, second only to Orr's 8. But Lidstrom's path was different. He won his first Norris at age 30 and then proceeded to dominate the back half of his career, winning his final one at age 40. He was the first European-trained player to ever win the Conn Smythe as playoff MVP. He was respected by everyone. Teammates adored him. Opponents admired him. He was so good, so fundamentally sound, that there was nothing to hate. He didn't need to hit you or slash you. He just took the puck from you and calmly started the breakout. He was the anchor of 4 Stanley Cup winning teams in Detroit. A silent leader who defined an era of excellence through sheer, unshakable competence. Nicklas Lidstrom proved you didn't need to be loud to be a legend. You just had to be perfect. For 21 seasons, Ray Bourque was with the Boston Bruins. He was their captain, their leader, their all-time leading scorer. He was a 5-time Norris Trophy winner and one of the greatest defensemen to ever play the game. He had done everything, except win. His career was a testament to loyalty and heartbreaking proximity. He was always on a good team, but never the last one standing. As the years wore on, it became the last unchecked box on a legendary resume. So in 2000, in an act of respect, the Bruins traded their icon to a contender, the Colorado Avalanche, for one last shot at glory. And in 2001, the moment finally arrived. After 22 years in the league, after 1,612 regular season games and another 214 in the playoffs, Ray Bourque was a Stanley Cup champion. But the real magic happened after the final buzzer. In a gesture that defines sportsmanship, Avalanche captain Joe Sakic, who was supposed to raise the trophy first, broke tradition. He took the cup, skated directly to Bourque, and handed it to him. The image of a tearful Ray Bourque finally lifting the Stanley Cup over his head is one of the most powerful and beloved moments in NHL history. It was more than just a win. It was a coronation, a final emotional reward for one of the classiest and most respected warriors the game has ever known. Some defensemen were known for their shot, others for their defensive prowess. Paul Coffey, he was known for his speed, a blinding, effortless, rink-tilting speed that made him look like he was playing a different sport. He wasn't just a defenseman who joined the Rush, he was the Rush. As the offensive engine of the 1980s Edmonton Oilers dynasty, Coffey played hockey like a fourth forward. His skating was so smooth and powerful that he could turn a simple regroup into a grade A scoring chance in the blink of an eye. And he used that speed to rewrite the record books. In 1985 and 86, he scored 48 goals, shattering Bobby Orr's record for a defenseman in a single season. In the 1985 playoffs, he put up a ridiculous 37 points in 18 games, a record that still stands. He is the second highest scoring defenseman in NHL history, a blur of offensive creation who feasted on open ice. He was a cornerstone of 4 Stanley Cup winning teams, 3 with Edmonton and 1 more with Pittsburgh. He proved that the most effective form of defense could be an all-out, unrelenting attack. Coffey wasn't just loved for his skill. He was loved for the pure, exhilarating thrill of watching him skate. Some players win a lot. And then there's Scott Niedermayer, a man who completed hockey. His resume isn't just impressive, it's a checklist of every major championship a player can win. He's the only player in hockey history to have won the Stanley Cup, a Memorial Cup, a World Junior Championship, an IIHF World Championship, a World Cup of Hockey, and an Olympic gold medal. He didn't just have a great career, he had 6 great careers. He was the definition of a franchise anchor. For 12 seasons, he was the smooth skating backbone of the New Jersey Devils, leading them to 3 Stanley Cups. Then he moved to Anaheim to play with his brother Rob, was named captain, and promptly led the Ducks to their first ever Stanley Cup in 2007. He won a Norris Trophy. He won a Conn Smythe Trophy as a playoff MVP. He was the captain of a gold medal winning Canadian Olympic team. Niedermayer was the quiet leader, the inflappable presence, the guy you wanted on the ice when everything was on the line. He wasn't just a winner. He was a champion in every sense of the word, in every jersey he ever wore. Every generation, a player arrives who feels like an evolution, a glimpse into the future of the sport. For today's NHL, that player is Cale Makar. He is the modern-day Bobby Orr, a dynamic, electrifying force who has taken the league by storm from the moment he stepped on the ice. His skating is explosive. His offensive instincts are sublime. He is the new blueprint for a superstar defenseman. His production is already historic. His career points per game average is 3rd all-time among defensemen, trailing only Orr and Coffey. His playoff scoring rate is 2nd all-time, behind only Orr. He's not just putting up numbers. He's putting up numbers that place him among the gods of the game. The praise comes from the highest levels. Wayne Gretzky himself said Makar is the closest player the league has seen since Orr. And he's a winner. In 2022, he had a season for the ages, winning the Norris Trophy, the Stanley Cup, and the Conn Smythe Trophy. He's the only 3rd defenseman in history to accomplish that feat, joining Bobby Orr and Nicholas Lidstrom. Yet, through all the success and historic comparisons, he remains impossibly humble. He calls the Orr comparisons crazy and hard for me to comprehend, stating he feels he has almost done nothing yet here. He is a generational talent with a champion's resume and a rookie's humility. Cale Makar isn't just the most loved defenseman of his era, he's the future of the position, happening right now. In an era of clutch and grab hockey, Brian Leetch was pure silk. He was a smooth skating, intelligent, and supremely skilled defenseman who made the game look effortless. For nearly 2 decades, he was the heartbeat of the New York Rangers, a homegrown hero who brought class and consistency to the world's biggest stage. Leetch wasn't a bruiser. He beat you with his mind. He saw plays developing before anyone else, delivering a perfect breakout pass or jumping into the rush to create a scoring chance out of nothing. He was a two-way artist who played with a quiet confidence that calmed his entire team. His crowning achievement came in 1994. He put the Rangers on his back and carried them to their first Stanley Cup in 54 years, ending one of the most infamous curses in sports. He was so dominant in that run that he became the first American-born player to win the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP. Through it all, Leetch was the definition of class. He was a respected leader, a humble superstar, and a player universally admired by teammates and opponents alike. He was proof that you didn't need to be the loudest or the meanest player on the ice to be the most effective. You just had to be the smartest. Here's where love and hate get complicated. To 29 other teams, Scott Stevens was a monster, a menace who patrolled the open ice like a shark, delivering some of the most devastating body checks the sport has ever seen. His hits on Eric Lindros and Paul Kariya are legendary. Moments of violent collision that altered careers and lived in infamy. Opponents hated him. They feared him. But in New Jersey, he was a god. For Devils fans, Stevens was the ultimate protector, the captain, the warrior who embodied the franchise's identity of tough, relentless, suffocating hockey. His hits weren't seen as dirty. They were seen as game changers. A single Stevens check could swing the momentum of a series, energize his team, and intimidate the opposition into submission. He wasn't just a hitter. He was a leader. He captained the Devils to 3 Stanley Cups in 9 years, building a dynasty on a foundation of defensive responsibility and physical dominance. He demanded accountability from his teammates and gave everything he had for the crest on his jersey. Fans in Philadelphia and Anaheim will tell you he was a villain, but fans in New Jersey will tell you he was their hero. He was the player you despised playing against, but would do anything to have on your own team. And that duality makes him one of the most uniquely loved players in the history of the game. So there you have it. The villains and the virtuosos, the predators and the pioneers. One group is remembered for the careers they cut short. The other is for the standards they set. One is defined by the rules they broke. The other was by the records they shattered. Hate builds rivalries. Love builds legends. And on the blue line, every shift is a choice between the two. Because in the NHL, a defenseman's legacy is not just measured in the trophies they win. It's also measured in the opponents they destroy.